You know, even though I'm a Packers fan, I think it's important to be as unbiased as I possibly can. So for the 49ers, for example, they're going 0-17. They are never going to win a Super Bowl. They're not going to win another game until this world falls apart.
And then, only then, when I am a dead, decrepit corpse, can they win another game.
Or they're probably going to win like 11 games again. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. No, I'm not bitter about the 49ers. Why do you ask? Grossi, and today we are going to be predicting and breaking down the NFC West, the last of the divisions in the NFC. We'll be starting with the AFC tomorrow. In case you're brand new to the channel or brand new to these predictions, basically what I do is I go through each team, a little bit of what they did during the offseason, and then predict their floor and their ceiling, what their record could look like if everything goes wrong, what their record looks like if everything goes right, and then we'll do the standings. Sound good? Let's do it. So, last year, we talked about the NFC North, pretty good on the predictions. Talked about NFC East, pretty good on the predictions. NFC South, that was a swing and a miss. Here, yeah, I was really wrong on the Rams. Last year, I had the 49ers finishing first, which they did, with a ceiling of 12-5, which they wound up finishing with. The Seahawks, I had them finishing second with a ceiling of 10-7 and a floor of 9-8. They finished third with a record of 9-8. The Rams, I was down on the Rams. I didn't believe in their O-line. I never knew that Puka Nacua could be so beautiful. So I had their ceiling at 7-10 and their floor at 5-12, and they kicked me right in the face, and they finished with a 10-7 record, finishing second. And then for the Cardinals, I had them finishing fourth with a ceiling of 5-12 and a floor of 3-13, because apparently I couldn't count last year. They finished with a record of 4-13. So yeah, I swapped the Rams and the Seahawks, and I was just really down on the Rams last year, and now I have learned my lesson. So if the Rams do poorly this year, it's just out of spite. And you know what? I respect that. So let's start off with predicting the San Francisco 49ers. And there's only really one thing that's going on with the 49ers, and that's Brandon Ayuk.
Give me money. Money me. Money now. Me a money needing a lot now.
I'm recording this on Thursday, August 15th. I'm probably going to have to make an edit to it if that trade ever finally happens or he re-signs. But I could not be more disinterested in this trade. I don't care anymore. It has gone on for so long. There was rumors about it happening during the draft, and it's just dragged on and on and on. So Brandon Ayuk, stay in San Francisco, go to Pittsburgh, I don't care. But let's talk about the 49ers and the guys that they actually have on the squad. So the 49ers offseason was pretty interesting. They lost Armstead. However, in free agency, they beefed up their D-line and their secondary, getting some depth pieces. I would like to see more depth behind a guy like Trent Williams, because God forbid that doesn't work out. Then Ricky Pearsall is who they drafted in the first round, a speedy wide receiver who has been dealing with some injury concerns. Hopefully he's good and ready to go for the season. But the 49ers are in a precarious place because they're a very good football team. Obviously, they were number one in the NFC last year, though the Packers or the Lions could have beaten them, and they could have won the Super Bowl if Shanahan knew how to hold a 10-point lead in that. But nobody is doubting their offense or their defense, and you look at the stats from last year, and they just speak for themselves. They were top 5 in every offensive category for the most part. They were third in points per game, they were the third best rushing offense in the league, and they were the fourth best passing offense in the league. So, yeah, having a top 5 offense with all of those weapons, they're going to be a pretty good football team. And their defense is nothing to shake your head at either. Looking at points allowed per game, they were third. Rushing defense was third in the league, and passing defense, which was their one weakness, they were still top 15 at 14. So the 49ers are still a good football team. And even if they miss some pieces and if they lose Brandon Ayuk, I still think they're going to be a good football team. They still got CMC, you still got Deebo Samuel, they still have Juwan Jennings who can always convert a third down, and their defense is really darn solid. Of course, their second secondary leaves a little bit to be desired, but the 49ers, I don't think anyone has a doubt they're still going to be a very competitive team, and they're going to be one of the best teams likely in the NFC. And looking at their schedule, the big concern that I have is that their division, I think, has gotten better. The Rams proved that they were a good team last year. The Seahawks, I think, have made some improvements, especially on defense, and I imagine the Cardinals are going to be a sneaky good team this year. So looking at their schedule, they got some tough games, of course, within their own division, but they got to go against the Packers, they got to go against the Dolphins, the Jets, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, they'll probably beat the Cowboys, and the Lions. So the schedule is not the easiest for the 49ers, and considering that there are going to be some decisions that are going to have to be made within these next few seasons, like on how much they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy, and the fact that they got some veterans on that team as well, they really have a limited window to give this all that they can and hope that they can win a Super Bowl. Now, all that being said, I have their floor, if everything goes wrong, because their schedule is a bit tougher, I have their floor at 9-8, which I can't imagine they're going to actually hit unless something happens like a catastrophic injury, which nobody ever hopes for. Instead, I have their ceiling a little bit less where they were last year. I had their ceiling last year at 12-5. This year, I have it at 11-6. Just because they've lost some pieces, the schedule is a bit harder. Their division has gotten a bit better. I can imagine them splitting with a bunch of teams within their division. I still have them at 11-6, which could still be enough to win this division, but the ultimate question is, can they get over the hump and can they win a Super Bowl? We shall see. Following that, you got the LA Rams, who just made me look foolish last year. The Rams, after struggling a couple seasons ago, Matthew Stafford getting injured, you had the offensive line looking like trash, Jalen Ramsey goes away, you're concerned. They were pretty damn good last year. Looking at their stats in points per game scored, they were 8th. They were 11th best rushing offense. They were the 10th best passing offense. You look at Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and they were just... phenomenal. Looking at their defense, top 20 in everything. They were 19th in points allowed, they were 12th in rushing defense, and they were 20th in passing defense. Now, of course, they did lose Aaron Donald this past offseason, which hurts. They got in Jared Verse, who they got to hope is going to be the next Aaron Donald. They shored up that secondary by bringing guys in like Trey White or Williams or even Curl. They got some guards as well to shore up that offensive line. I mean, Matthew Stafford's got to be pretty darn excited to play with all his weapons this year.
My gun.
Oh.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang!
Wow.
Bang!
And so if that offensive line can keep Stafford upright and they can be healthy, watch out. The Rams could be a very, very sneaky good team this year. They don't have the easiest of schedules. The same exact reason for the 49ers. Again, within their division, there's going to be some hardship. They are playing against the Lions, the Jets outside their division. The Packers are going to be one of them, the Eagles. So they're definitely going to be tested this year. I mean, hell, they're going to be tested the first week as they're playing Sunday Night Football against the Lions. So if everything goes wrong for the Rams, I have their floor at 7-10. They're another team I don't expect to be that bad. And their ceiling, I have it the same exact as the 49ers at 11-6. There's a couple games here where I definitely would be concerned, like the Lions game, both game against the 49ers, the Jets, the Eagles. But if they can come out and just even split with the 49ers and beat the rest of their division, the Rams are going to be a good football team this year, and I think they have the potential to win the NFC West. So yes, I was down on them last year. I have learned my lesson. As long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy, the Rams are going to be fun to watch. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, they're a real interesting team. They had a wonky season last year. I was really down on them, and rightfully so, because Kyler Murray wasn't going to be playing for a while. They really didn't have a lot of wide receivers. There just wasn't a lot going on with Arizona. However, this team, I think, proved how chippy they were. They beat the Eagles, they beat the Cowboys, and they were competitive for a while, even when they didn't have Kyler Murray. And when Kyler Murray came back, they looked like a much different team. Jonathan Gannon, of course, coming in his second year, who everybody, including myself, clowned on that pick because you had the whole tampering thing and that garbage, and of course the it was cringy. But even though they were the fourth worst team last year, they showed that spark, and that is what I think is going to continue into this upcoming season. They of course made some big time moves in the draft. They got Darius Robinson and of course Marvin Harrison Jr., who I cannot wait to see on the field. They did lose Hollywood Brown, of course, but they brought in guys like Jonah Williams, DJ Dallas, for example, shoring up that defensive line with Nichols, and I just think that they could be a chippy team that is definitely flying under the radar.
I'm having trouble with the radar, sir.
What's wrong with it?
I've lost the bleeps, I've lost the sweeps, and I've lost the creeps.
The what? The what? And the what?
You know.
And I'm not saying that they're going to be world enders, but I think that they're closer to contention than some people might think. So, taking a look at their schedule, similar ideas to what I just said about their division, but their schedule is not the absolute worst. If they are able to split with some teams like the Seahawks and the Rams and heck, maybe even the 49ers, I see their ceiling going up pretty darn high. Their floor, if everything goes wrong, I have them at 6-11, which would be the lowest of the teams I've predicted thus far in this division. However, I have their ceiling all the way up at 10-7. I think a lot would have to go right. I think that run game would have to be amazing like it was last year because they were the 4th best rushing team in the league. However, looking at their other stats on offense, they were 24th in points per game scored, but again, Kyler Murray wasn't there for a while, and they were 26th in passing offense, which again, you would hope is going to get better with Kyler Murray there for a full season. You brought in some weapons, hopefully that helps. Their defense, they were 31st in points allowed, so that definitely needs an overhaul. They were 32nd in rushing defense, which is abysmal, and 13th in passing defense. And I think that this roster definitely needs more talent. I don't think it's all going to be fixed this year, but don't be surprised if they wind up winning 7 or 8 games or potentially even teasing a wild card appearance, because I just think the Cardinals right now, they're built of the right stuff. And if this team continues to build through the draft and get better and better each year, then yeah, I think they're in the playoffs sooner rather than later. And then finally, you got the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, you had quite the offseason, huh? No more Pete Carroll, but I mean, technically he is still sticking around.
I lied to Michael. I said that I would leave him alone, but I will not. I will remain close by to provide unseen moral support, but I will never help him.
They also switched offensive coordinators, which they definitely needed to do. Bringing in McDonald, I absolutely love this. And a lot of the focus and emphasis is going to be on the Seattle Seahawks defense this year. Woolen coming back and being healthy. Witherspoon is going to be so much fun. It's a defense that I'm expecting to be much improved. They, of course, gave a big old deal to Leonard Williams, which is definitely going to help. Byron Murphy fell into their laps, and just even basing what he did in the preseason, I know it's just preseason, but yeah, I think he's going to be an absolute monster. Looking at where they were last year, on the offense, they were 17th in points per game scored. They were 28th in rushing offense, which I have to imagine is going to get better. They have studs at running back, but they just cannot stay healthy. If that changes this year, which Seahawks fans are begging that it does, that number is going to get much better. And they were 14th in passing offense. They have the weapons, and while Geno Smith, I don't necessarily think is going to be their franchise guy, he can lead them to success. Looking over at their defense, they were 25th in points allowed per game, which was not good. They were 31st in rushing defense, which was abysmal, and they were 21st in passing defense. But again, I expect that last number to get much better. Bringing in Byron Murphy and also having Leonard Williams should help also in the run game and just even getting after the quarterback. So for the Seahawks, I think they're going to be pretty darn good. Of course, with a brand new head coach, you never know. There might just be some growing pains. But besides this being a difficult division, I have their floor, if everything goes wrong, at around 8-9, which would be a better record than what they ended with last year. And I have their ceiling at 10-7. So there's a small margin of error here just because I really am confident that they're going to get to around 9 wins. And then it's just going to depend on how good their offense is, but more importantly, how good that defense is. If the defense can improve, which again, I think it's going to from last year, yeah, this team is going to cause problems. They could have potentially made the playoffs last year, and that's with a ton of injuries and a ton of things going on. Now, new head coach, new direction, better defense. I think the Seahawks are going to be an improved football team. And so based off these standings right now, I still have the 49ers winning the division at number 1. Then I got the Rams at number 2. And then you're going to have a potential split, I believe a little bit more in the Seahawks at number 3, and then the Cardinals number 4. So I think standings might be very similar to where they were last year, but it might come down to a single game or so between the Rams and 49ers or the Seahawks and the Cardinals. So all I know is the NFC West is going to be a lot of fun this year. And of course, the Packers have to play them. So great. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You guys find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.